Welcome back. We are talking about Chapter 4, Proportional Relationships, and we're starting with Lesson 1 that is talking about rates. Now, a rate is a ratio. Now, ratio, I know that you've heard that word before, but it's really, really important that you understand what the word ratio means. So ratio can be written a couple different ways. You could do like 2 to 3. That would be a ratio. You can say 2 to 3, or you can write it as 2 over 3 or 2 divided by 3. These are 3 different ways to write a ratio. 1, 2, and 3 right there. So today we're really going to be looking at the ratio. We're going to be talking about ratios in words, but we're going to be putting them into fractional form here. So let's go ahead and that's the way that we're going to be kind of dealing with the ratios. So a rate is a ratio that compares two different kinds of quantities or measurements. This is also really important. Rates can be simplified. So if you think about that, and we think about rates being a ratio, and we're going to be looking at ratios that are can be fractions. If we have something like 4 over 6, we can simplify that if this is a rate, and we can put it into the lowest terms or simplified form. 2 goes into both of those. 2 goes into 4 2 times, and 2 goes into 6 3 times. So that can be simplified to 2/3. Now that's going to be something that we're going to be doing today. So a rate is a ratio that compares two different kinds of quantities or measurements. Rates can be simplified. That's what it's referring to when it says that statement. Rates sometimes use the words per and for instead of to. So we're used to, when we're talking about a ratio, saying 2 to 3. Okay, that's a ratio. A ratio is the number 2 to 3. Well, what this is saying is that you can substitute the word per in for 2. So it could be 2 per 3 or 2 for 3. So we can substitute these two words instead of using the word to when we're talking about rates, such as 55 miles per hour. So 55 miles per hour, if we're looking at that, we see that word per right there. Well, that means is the same thing as to, okay? So the way that we would write this rate would be to write 55 miles, and we're going to put it in fractional form. So that per, which means 2, that's where you write the fraction per hour. Well, it's per 1 hour. So that's how we would write that particular rate, 55 miles to 1 hour. And see how it's comparing different kinds of quantities or measurements. 55 is in miles, and this is in time, which is in hours. So we're comparing two different quantities, and that's what you do in rates, okay? Let's look at a different example right here. This one is 3 tickets for $1. So we would write 3 tickets, and then for that, you could easily write the word to there, and that lets you know, hey, that's where you write the division symbol, or divided by, or the fraction. So 3 tickets to $1. So that would be another way of writing a rate from words. Okay, let's move on. The scale on a map might be 3 inches equals to 60 miles. So a lot of times on maps, when you're dealing with maps, it's like a small version of something really, really big, and so they have a key, right? And the key, it's usually in inches or centimeters or something like that. And then it tells you, okay, for every 3 inches, that actually equals 60 real miles. So how you would write that is right here. You would write 3 inches equals 60 miles. So 3 inches, and they're saying equals, but that's kind of the same thing as 2 or per or 4. So 3 inches over 60 miles. Okay? So we can simplify this, okay? Simplify by dividing both numerator and denominator by the same number. So what we're going to do is we're going to divide this by 3. We're going to divide the top and the bottom by 3. Now 3 divided by 3 is 1. So then we're going to have 1 inch. And 60 divided by 3, well, I'm going to go over here and go 60 divided by 3. 3 goes into 6 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. We subtract. 6 take away 6 is 0. We drop down that 0. 3 isn't able to go into 0, so we put a 0 there. 0 times 3 is 0. No remainder. We're done. So that means 60 divided by 3 is 20 miles. So what this tells us is that 1 inch, for every 1 inch, that is the same thing as 20 miles on the map. Or we could say it as 1 inch, if we're going to say it in words, 2, and there's that word right there, to 20 miles. So that would be the word version of this particular rate, which is comparing two different quantities, inches and miles. Okay, let's talk about the next concept. It says a unit rate is a rate, so which means it's a ratio comparing two different quantities per 1 unit. Per 1 unit. Okay, so that means you have to have 1 in the denominator. So in a unit rate, the denominator is always 1. So you always have to have the denominator. Remember, the denominator is the bottom part of a fraction. It always, 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 always has to be 1 whenever you're dealing with a unit rate. Okay? So what we're going to do here is we have Miguel can type 180 words in 4 minutes. So we have 180 words in 4 minutes. The word in is kind of like to or per or for. So we have 180 words in 4 minutes, okay? That is the rate. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to make this a unit rate. That means we need this 4 to become a 1. So the only way we can get this 4 to be a 1 is if we divide it by 4, because 4 divided by 4 is 1. Okay, and whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do it to the top. So we have 180 divided by 4. Now, I don't know what that is off the top of my head, so I'm going to go over here and go 180 divided by 4. 4 can't go into 1, but it can go into 18. How many times does it go into 18? I'm going to say it goes in 4 times, because 4 times 4 is 16. And then we subtract. 8 minus 6 is 2. 1, take away 1 is just 0. We drop down this 0. 4 goes into 20. 5 times 4 is 20, and there's no remainder there. So we know that 180 divided by 4 is actually equal to 45. So this is the unit rate because we have 1 on the bottom. So this is the unit rate. And on some of the problems, you're going to be asked to find the unit rate. So you're going to start here, and you're going to have to make this on the bottom a 1. So whatever this number is, you're going to have to divide the bottom and the top by that same number. So here we have our unit rate. Our unit rate is that Miguel can type 45 words in 1 minute, or 45 words per minute. So we don't have 1 minute because when you just talk about minute, that is a singular thing, so we know that it's one. And this would be word form. So in these problems, you're going to have words. You're going to have to convert it to a rate. Then you're going to have to do some calculations in order to make it a unit rate and have 1 on the bottom. So whatever this number is, you're just going to divide the bottom and the top by the same number, which is going to give you the unit rate. And then you're going to have to describe that unit rate in word form. So you're just going to say 45 words per minute. And there's that key word again, per, which is the same thing as to that we used when we learned about ratios. All right, so let's go ahead and look at some problems. So looking at the first problem, it says find each unit rate, write in both fraction and word form. So it says unit rate. That's the key word that says, hey, we have to have 1 in that denominator. So I am going to write a 1 on top. Well, actually, I'm going to write it on the bottom because it needs to be in the denominator. So we need to have the denominator being a 1. And then it wants us to write it in both fraction and word form. So both fraction and word form. Okay, so let's try this first one. Number 1, it says film costs $7.50 for 3 rolls. And we see that keyword for, and we know that that just means 2. So that is where we're going to have our fraction. So it's going to be $7.50 over 3 rolls. And we need to make it a unit rate. So this 3 has to become a 1. The only way we can make this 3 into a 1 is if we divide it by itself. So we're going to divide this by 3. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 3 divided by 3 is going to give us 1 roll. Now we just need to figure out, well, what's 750 divided by 3? So I'm going to go over here to the side. 750 divided by 3. So does 3 go into 7? Yes, it does. How many times? It goes in 2 times. 2 times 3 is 6. Then I'm going to subtract. 7 take away 6 is 1. Then I'm going to drop down this 5 and put the decimal right there. Does 3 go into 15? Yes, it does. 5 times. 5 times 3 is 15. And then that is 15 take away 15 is 0. And I got to drop down this 0. And 3 does not go into 0. So it goes in 0 times 3 is 0, no remainder, boom. Okay, so we know that $7.50 divided by 3 is $2.50. So this right here is our unit rate because we now have a 1 in the bottom. So now we're just going to go ahead and write this in word form. So film costs $2.50 per roll. And that's how that would work. Okay, let's try problem number 2. So it says drive 288 miles on 16 gallons of gas. So this word on, that's going to be like our 2, okay? I can't really see that there. It's going to be our 2. 280 miles, that's going to go on top of the fraction. 16 gallons is going to go on the bottom. Now we need to make this 16 into a 1, and so the only way we can do that is if we divide it by 16 to the bottom and to the top. 16 divided by 16 is 1. 288 divided by 16, I'm not sure what that is, so I'm going to have to go off to the side here. 288 divided by 16. 16 does not go into 2. It goes into 28. I'm going to say it goes in 1 time. 1 times 16 is 16. We subtract. 8 take away 6 is 2. 2 take away 1 is 1. Right? Our remainder is less than 16, so we know we did it correctly. And now we're just going to drop down this 8. Okay, so we need to figure out how many times does 16 go into 128. Let's see here. Well, I'm going to, 16 is kind of close to 20. And this is kind of close to, 130. And so 2 kind of goes into 130. It will go in kind of 6 times. Let's go ahead and see what 16 times 6 is. Six times 6, 36. 6 times 1 is 6. Plus 3 would be 9. Okay, so that I don't think is big enough. How about we try 16 times 7? You know what might work? It might be 16 times 8. I bet you it's 16 times 8. Let's try 16 times 8. The only reason why I'm saying 8 is because 6 times 8 is 48, and this ends in an 8. So if I put the 7, 6 times 7 is 42. This doesn't end in a 2. So I bet you it's going to be going 8 times. Let's go ahead and figure it out. 6 times 8 is 48, so I write it 8. Carry the 4. 8 times 1 is 8, plus 4 is 12. And boom, there we have it, 128. So we know that 16 goes into 128 8 times, because 8 times 16 is 128, and there's no remainder. Perfect. So when we go 288 divided by 16, we know that that is 18 miles. So it ends up being, the unit rate ends up being 18 miles per gallon. And so that's just what we're going to say. In word form, it would be 18 miles per gallon. Okay? Perfect. How about you guys go ahead and try out 3 and 4. So where's my friend the pause dragon? Reminding you to pause. Oh, here it is. Okay. Go ahead and pause your device, work out problems 3 and 4. When you get done, press play, and we'll see how you did. All right, see you in a bit. See you in a bit. All right, we are back. Let's see how you did on problem number 3. Okay, problem 3 says earn $52 for 8 hours of work. So there's that keyword for, which is the same thing as 2. So we have $52 over 8 hours of work. Now we have to find the unit rate, so we need this to be a 1. So the only way we can do that is if we divide it by 8. So 8 divided by 8. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. 8 divided by 8 is 1. 52 divided by 8, I'm not sure that that goes in evenly, so we're going to have to do that division over here. 52 divided by 8. 8 doesn't go into 5. 8 goes into 52, I'm going to say 6 times, because 6 times 8 is 48. Okay, then we're going to subtract. The 2 is not big enough. I need to borrow from this 5, making that a 4. That's going to be 12. So 12 minus 8 is 4. And then I'm going to have to add a decimal because I have a remainder. I need to keep going and add a 0 here, which I'm going to drop down. And then 8 goes into 40 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. There's no remainder. And since I'm talking about money, I know that 6.5 is the same thing as $6.50. So that's the unit rate. I earn $6.50 per hour, which in this day and age isn't that great. But back in the day when I was young, that's kind of what minimum wage used to be. Oh my gosh, I'm so old. Okay, we're moving on, but we're going to put this in word form. So we earn $6.50 per hour. Boom. There we go. All right, cool. Let's see how you did. So if you got that right, great job. Let's go ahead and see how you did on problem number 4. So this says use 5 quarts of water for every 2 pounds. So there's that keyword for, which means 2, which means in front of the word 2, that's what goes on the top of the fraction. After the word 2, that's what goes on the bottom. So here we go, 5 quarts, that goes on top. This is where the fraction is. For every 2 pounds goes on the bottom. So we want to make this a unit rate. So this 2 has to become a 1. The way we get this 2 to become a 1 is we divide it by 2, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. But whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. Okay? So 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 5 divided by 2, well, we're going to have to do that division. 5 divided by 2. 2 goes into 5 2 times. 2 times 2 is 4. There's a remainder of 1. Which means we're going to have to add a decimal and add a 0 and drop it down. 2 goes into 10 5 times. 5 times 2 is 10. And there's no remainder. So we know we have our answer. It's 2.5 quarts. So that is the unit rate. The unit rate is 2.5 quarts per 1 pound. So in word form, we would write 2.5 quarts per pound. Okay, so if you got both of those right, great job, smiley face for you. Okay, let's go ahead and do 5 together. So it says, number 5 says that the snowfall of 12 inches in 4 hours. So we're going to go ahead and write the unit rate. Snowfall of 12 inches in 4 hours. So in, that is the key word, which means 2. So this is 12 inches is what's going to go on the top of the fraction, 12 inches. In, or 2, that's what shows where we write the division symbol or the fraction symbol. And then after the word 2 or in is what goes on the bottom, which is 4 hours. Okay? So that means that we have 12 over 4, and we want this to be a unit rate, so we need this 4 to turn into a 1. So how we do that is we have to divide it by 4 to the bottom. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do it to the top. And that means we end up with 4 divided by 4, which is 1 hour. And then 12 divided by 4 would be 3 inches. So that's our unit rate. 3 inches, the snow fell 3 inches per hour. And if we want to put that into the word form, we would say 3 inches per hour. Okay? So we have both of them there. We have the unit rate and the answer in word form. So now I want you to go ahead and try 6 on your own. 90 students and 5 teachers. Go ahead and write the unit rate and then write your answer in word form. All right. Oh, there's our friend the pause dragon. Go ahead and pause. Work that problem out. When you get done, press play and we'll go over the results. All right, we're back. We have 90 students and 5 teachers. So now they're using the word and that's okay. That just means 2, okay? It's the same thing, 90 students to 5 teachers. So this goes on top of the fraction, 90 students, 2, that's where we do the division, 5 teachers. So this is the rate, and this equals 90 over 5. And we need to make this a unit rate, so we need this number on the bottom to turn into a 1. So the only way we can get 5 into a 1 is to divide it by 5, because 5 divided by 5 is 1. Whatever we do to the bottom, we have to do to the top. Okay, so we end up with 5 divided by 5, which is 1. And then 90 divided by 5, I'm not exactly sure what that is. So I'm going to go ahead and do that long division right here. 90 divided by 5. 5 goes into 9 one time. 1 times 5 is 5. 9 take away 5 is 4. And then we drop that 0 down. 5 goes into 40 8 times. 8 times 5 is 40 with no remainder. So 90 divided by 5 is 18. So it's 18 students per one teacher. So that would be our unit rate right there. And then if we want to write it in word form, we would write 18 students per teacher. So if you got that one right, great job. Yokurikimashita. You're doing a wonderful job. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.